Right, so we're going to... The only way really to talk about the next case is to centre it first of all around the actual criminal, because it is the crimes of Napa. And obviously he had a very long history and lots of missed opportunities to catch him. So I'm just going to warn you, that's how the next one's going to have to be. Although when we talk about the individual cases, we'll talk about the victims more than Napa, obviously. We have to describe it in the history of who he was and what he did. I believe the Napa case is probably the Metropolitan Police biggest failing to date. And that's saying something. Beth is good, and should we keep her? I'm not sure if we should keep her. She keeps making fun of my... I said to my mod the other day, should we mod Beth? But if she says one more thing about my cooking, I'm binning her off. I literally have got my new... whoever told me to get a bigger coil was right. And I shot him down straight away. I've got the biggest coil I can have, all right? The next day I went to shop, he went, you need a bigger coil, you're really loud. Fucking hell. I've just started vaping a new favourite called Dark Cherry Ice, but I think it's a bit sickly. Thank you, SJ, so much. Hey, King, how are you? Right, let's get started with this case. It's already 10 o'clock. So we are going to talk about... let me find him. The crimes of this man, Napa. So first of all, I'm just gonna give you a little bit of a timeline first of all for some of the things he did, because I'm going to more focus tonight on his murders. But he was a prolific rapist. Now, the last count they did of the victims they think he actually raped was 106 over a 4-year period, and it's absolutely disgusting because actually Robert Napa's own mother phoned the police after the very first rape and said, I believe my son just raped someone on Plumstead Common, and they ignored her. And other people over the years actually phoned to give information about Napa. There was 8 missed opportunities to arrest him. So in August of 1989, and I will give you a bit of a background into his life in a minute, but I'm just going to tell you about his crime spree. So in August of 1989, Robert Napa gains entry to a house on Plumstead Common, where he rapes a 31-year-old woman at knife point while he's wearing a mask. Obviously, that's in South East London. Now, your door number was 106. Oh, that's a coincidence. Napa's mum, Pauline, calls police to say her son told her he had raped a woman on Plumstead Common. So she phones 3 months after the first rape and says, my son's just said to me that he raped someone on Plumstead Common. Have you got a rape like that? And they don't link it to the actual... They don't link it to the actual... Fucking hell, Ella. They don't link it to the actual rape that's happened, this brutal rape. So on March the 10th of 1992, he attempts to rape a 17-year-old girl on Green Chain Walk in Hither's Green in South East London. Now, one thing you need to understand about Robert Napa is he tries to rape people, but he can't always perform. So a lot of the rapes that he tries to commit are just ended in brutality and violence because he gets frustrated at the woman that he cannot perform. Now, in the 24th of May, just a couple of months later, so he rapes, attempted rape of a 17-year-old on the 10th of March. On the 18th of March, he rapes another girl on that Green Chain Walk. He rapes her at knife point just 8 days later. Then on the 24th of May 1992, a 22-year-old blonde mother is raped while she has her child with her. Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit more later, but he liked to rape women who were with children, okay? And people have linked it to the brutality he went through as a child, the domestic violence in his house, and he liked to make children feel powerless like he felt powerless. Now, apart from the one time when we know he killed a young girl while she was at home with her mother and left her surrounded by her childhood toys on her bed after he smothered her to death, he didn't overly attempt to hurt the children. He raped and beat their mothers in front of them. And we know famously with Rachel and Kel, when her body was found broken and covered in blood, her son Alex, a toddler, was clinging to her body, attempting to use receipts out of her bag to use as plasters to try and make his mum come back to life. He was a brutal, sick bastard. So on the 24th of May 1992, a 22-year-old blonde mother is raped in Green Chain Walk. Like I said, she had a child with her. And then we know on the 15th of July of 1992, we know that Rachel Nicole, who was 23, is stabbed to death 12 miles away in Wimbledon Common. And we're going to get into her case fully in a second. Now, on the 27th of August, less than 4 weeks after the murder of Rachel Nicole, his neighbour calls the police to say, I think it was Napa. He matches the picture that you've put out of the killer of Rachel Nicole, the man who was seen washing the blood off his hands. And the police phone him and ask him to come in to give blood, which he doesn't, and they don't chase it up. On the 3rd of September 1992, another neighbour rings to say, your photo fit looks like Napa, it's him. Police revisit Napa again, and he fails to give a blood sample again. He doesn't want to. Colin Stagg was then arrested. We'll get into that in a minute. On the 18th of September, people have said he looks like the photo fit, so they arrest him, but they don't go after Napa, and they famously then honey trap him, which we'll go into in a minute. Which is when you get an attractive police officer to start trying to potentially date with him, try to say to him, I fantasize about rape and murder, tell me about a rape and murder you've committed. And he goes on to say, I raped and murdered Rachel Nicole, you know. We'll go through all that in a minute. So no questions at the moment, because I just want to go through this timeline with you. We're going to get deep into the case in a minute. We'll go into the photo fit, we'll get into all those things in a minute, but I'm just doing the timeline. So on the 24th of October 1992, Napa is eliminated from the rape inquiries because they believe he's a little bit too tall. Not because of DNA, not because of fingerprints, not because of anything, because they go a little bit taller than what we're looking for. On the 27th of October 1992, Napa is arrested for possession of a firearm and ammunition. He's sentenced to 8 weeks in prison for that. On the 23rd of April, Napa's fingerprints are identified on a tin found buried on Winds Common, which is adjoining of Plumstead Common. It is his fingerprints on a Mauser handgun, but police decide not to pursue it, not to go and arrest him, not to go and speak to him, not to anything. On July of 1993, Napa comes up on police intelligence again. A husband and wife have seen him peeping through their window. Napa is questioned, and police write on his forms, this man should not be considered as a possible rapist. So, on the 17th of August 1993, Stagg is charged with the murder of Rachel Nicole, which we later find out obviously he didn't do. And because of all of these failings, including the two neighbours that tried to phone and say, look, I think it's him, police don't arrest him, they don't take his blood, and that leads on the 3rd of November of 1993 for him to break into the house of Samantha and Jasmine Bissett, who was only 4, and her mother, and he murders them both in that home. Napa's fingerprints identified at the scene of the Bissett murders, trainer footprints at the scene match his, DNA tests identify him then as being the Green Chain Rapist, and he is on prison on remand. At this point, in September of 1994, the case against Stagg is thrown out by Mr Justice Ognall when they realise they have no evidence at all to prove that Stagg did this. And then in 1994, a review begins into the Nicole murder, and they look at Napa. They fail to check his alibi, and they don't do anything again. On the 9th of October 1995, Napa pleads guilty to manslaughter of the Bissets, 2 attempted rapes and 1 rape And they then interview him in 1995 about the murder of Nicole. He denies going on Wimbledon Common ever. And then that takes us into what will happen next. We know at the moment, because I'm going to do that, I'm going to deep dive that in a second. So we know that he is then put into Broadmoor Hospital, which he remains there to this day. He's in his early 60s now, and that's where he lives, and he is still there. But I want to talk about some of these cases now. So I want to kind of get into Robert Napa, his background, who he is, what actually happened to Rachel Nicole, which is a very sad story. Then we'll discuss like kind of her son, what he remembers now, because he was 3 at the time. And then we'll move into the Bissett murders, which are absolutely heartbreaking. So that's what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So I believe this was the photo fit that his neighbours kept saying was him. Julie, that you asked for. Look at the nose. You got to remember how basic photo fits were back then. But to me, you've got two neighbours saying it's him. I think it does look like him. It's definitely something worth looking into, isn't it? And obviously it is quite basic, but then if you looked into it, thank you, Mel. If you looked into him, you'd have seen the the eyes, the nose, the mouth. Like if you look into it, obviously the hair really doesn't do any justice, but because of the way they computerized them back then, it always looked a bit weird, didn't it? Hello, Tracy, how are you? So we're going to get talking about Rachel and Kelman. I'm quite grateful to just take down his picture at this point because he just makes me sick. I love this picture of her with her son. She was such a beautiful woman. Look at her little baby as well. I'm good, thank you, TikTok. How are you? And this was her with her, this is her with her partner, Andre, and her baby. She did just such a stunning family. Really in love, really happy. I always wonder with some cases, because Rachel's case is so widely known and so famous, and then the case of like Samantha and Jasmine Bissett isn't as well known. Oh, it's my G. Hello, G. You're just coming in time to hear Rachel's case. Are you okay, G? Beautiful family. Beautiful family. So let's get into the case. Okay. This is the one I wanted to use. Yeah, it's my one. Right, so I wanted to make sure I got this open. Okay. So on July the 15th of 1992, a bright Wednesday morning on Wimbledon Common. Hey Bev, how are you? Are you okay? A young mother, Rachel Nicole, walked hand in hand with her 2-year-old son. And that was Alex, her little son Alex, and their golden retriever Molly. And this was something they did a lot. Rachel loved the outdoors, but she especially was very good with her dog Molly, who she adored. And Molly's like bounding ahead on the path, and she's holding little Alex's hand. And it was supposed to be just another peaceful morning walk like they took all the time. Instead, it became one of Britain's most notorious unsolved murders, a case that would expose the darkest failures of the justice system, and actually probably what I believe was the greatest fucking fuck up by the Metropolitan Police ever. This failing by the police system and the justice system put in place to protect us would mean that many families would be destroyed and innocent lives would be shattered forever for over a decade. So Rachel Nicole was everything you'd want in a neighbour, friend, daughter, partner, mother. At 23, she radiated warmth and kindness that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her life revolved around her pride and joy, little Alex, and her partner Andre, who adored both of them. They were such a close-knit family and they had been together for quite some time. Alex being born had been just such a joy to her. And she was really kind of a woman who was so just happy by the simpler things in life, the sunshine, the nature walks, her little family. She's absolutely a gorgeous woman as well. She was just so happy with what she had in life. That Wednesday morning started like countless others before. Thank you, Bev. Rachel dressed Alex in his favourite outfit, packed some snacks, and headed out for their regular walk along Wimbledon Common, a sprawling green space between in southwest London, like that loads of people used. I'm going to show you some pictures. I've only got I've got some of the crime scene photos from online. Thank you, Bev, so much. This is this was a crime scene down here, and this is like a bird's eye view. I just got these off Mandopedia so we could have a look at them. So as you can see, it's very much just fields and green space and trees. And you know, it was a picturesque, beautiful place to take your son. You know, he was at the age where he's just waddling, and you could just get outside in the fresh air, walk the dog. Did you, Stace? It's just it's horrendous. My mum used to read books about this case all the time, and it's one of the main reasons I'm invested in true crime. She used to have a book about Martha Moxley, and a book about Rachel Nickell, 2 books about Rachel Nickell, and I used to read them when I was far too young. I found them under a bed, and I was always grew up knowing who Rachel Nickell was, and I always wanted to do something because of this case. Is it a remote place? It's like a green space in London, and it's used by loads of people, dog walkers and people walking. There is definitely parts of it where you'd be alone. You'd be quite in a remote place. I mean, no one witnessed that day what happened to Rachel. But it is, you know, a place in London where a lot of people do go. So the common buzzed that morning with its usual activity, dog walkers, joggers, families with children. It felt safe. It was safe, or so everyone thought until it wasn't. Around 10:30 a.m, a passerby noticed that something that made their blood run cold. A small toddler was found clinging to a woman's dead body in a secluded copse of trees. The 2-year-old was covered in his mother's blood. It was baby Alex. He was crying, screaming, wake up mummy, over and over again. Rachel lay dead, the victim of a brutal sexual assault and murder that shocked even seasoned detectives. The attack had been swift, savage, and at random. It was a stranger attack. Alex had witnessed everything. It was absolutely horrific what he did to Rachel. Thank you, House of Chaos. Thank you so much. It was absolutely brutal. I want to move to this thing I had about the... Okay, so Rachel Nickell, I'm just going to go into the injuries quickly, which is really, really, really brutal. He had attacked her while she was walking with her son. The dog was in front of them running. He had stabbed her 49 times, made her kneel down onto her knees, and then slashed her throat, and then raped her in front of her son while she was dead. So he raped her post-mortem. All of this in front of her 2-year-old little son, who, when the authorities got to the scene, Alex had taken out receipts and tried to stick them over his mum's head wounds and throat to try and use them as a plaster because he thought he could save his mum. The scene that greeted the police was something from their worst nightmares. Rachel had been sexually assaulted, stabbed multiple times, with such terrifying force and violence in this perfect scenery. And then the killer had just disappeared without a trace. No witnesses, no clear forensic evidence, no obvious motives, just a covered in blood toddler who was traumatised and a community gripped in fear. Now, Detective Inspector Keith Pedder, who was actually in charge of the case, obviously was feeling a lot of pressure because of the public expectation to have this case solved quickly. When a murder this brutal happens, it sends shockwaves right through not just the close community, but the country. And when we find out that a 2-year-old not only witnesses this brutal attack, but is found clinging to his mum's body, that is senseless to us. We cannot understand, we cannot comprehend how this could happen. Thank you, Kirsty. Now, everybody in the UK is horrified. The newspapers are covered with Rachel Nickell's face, with her son, with pictures of the common, and everybody wants justice. Now, sometimes, though, for police officers, the pressure put upon them by the public, by the internal kind of machine that makes up the police, creates more problems than solutions. Within weeks, police had identified a suspect, the wrong suspect. They found a guy called Colin Stagg, who was a 29-year-old loner, a bit of an odd bod, who lived near the common and had been walking there that morning. And they too believed the photo fit looked like Colin Stagg, and it does a little bit. It looks like most white men. But they decide to target him because he's very awkward. And, you know, when you read about Colin Stagg and you really kind of delve into the honey trap thing, which I will talk about a little bit, you see that he was like the perfect person to do this to. I definitely think in today's time we would maybe say that he had additional needs. Colin Stagg, he was definitely someone who was shy and awkward, socially not very good. He had few friends. he struggled with the relationships, he struggled to find his place. And he did have an interest in paganism and the occult, which I'm sure loads of you have. And loads of you have probably read about it at some point or wanted to learn more about it. But when you're looking for someone who you believe is a murderer, and all of a sudden you see someone who's socially not very good, he likes paganism, he's interested in the occult, he doesn't have any friends, he struggles, he also could quite quickly fit the profile of what they were looking for. Now, unfortunately, as a police officer, you are supposed to find somebody who is forensically linked to a scene before you just go, well, he's an odd bod, so he's done it. Now, they had absolutely no evidence, apart from circumstantial, what was in their head basically, that linked Colin Stagg to this brutal murder. No DNA, no fingerprints, no witness placing at the scene, absolutely nothing. He'd never done this before. He'd never, raped or murdered before. And we know, as people, thank you. Hey, Noble, how are you? We know as people that look at crime, and I don't just mean myself, I mean people like you guys who watch documentaries and listen to different podcasts. We know that people don't start off committing crimes, thank you Sonia, this ferocious. They don't just go out and start forcing mothers down onto their knees, stabbing them 49 times, slitting their throats, raping them post-mortem in front of a 2-year-old. This doesn't happen. They generally escalate in their behaviour. And if you'd looked into anyone else at the scene, they'd gone back to look into rapes, etc., they would have found that Robert Napper had been named several times. He was very strange. So, but rather than broadening their investigation, police doubled down on the suspicion that Colin had to be the one to have done this. Thank you, Dion. What followed was one of the most controversial and unethical operations in British police history. Now, we're going to talk about Operation Edzell, which happened next. Now, Operation Edzell was basically where they decided to recruit a honey trap officer. So they would get a woman who was supposed to pretend to be sexually invested in Colin Stagg and then use whatever she could get out of him. Did you, Hayley? You've known him. Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you. So they decided to build a case against Stagg through legitimate means. Police devised an elaborate undercover operation. They recruited an attractive female officer whose name was like that, a vid you did in our voice. What do you mean, Mike? What vid I did in your voice? I don't think... Oh, the Scouse video. Oh, yeah, literally. Lesbian Drone Girl. I think so. I think that's what you mean. So they got Lizzie James to pose as a lonely woman seeking companionship and targeted him through a Lonely Hearts column. Now, do you all guys know what the Lonely Hearts columns are? We don't really have it these days because we have weird websites to do it instead. But back in the day, you'd write at the end, the back of the newspaper, like 21 from Liverpool, our usual place again, likes long walks on the beach, stealing trainers. I'm only joking. And then people would meet each other through that way, yeah? P.O. Box, yeah. And you would write in or you could phone the number and leave a message. Hi, I'm Barbara from Devon. I like pasties. So, yeah, that's how people would meet. So, her mission was to seduce Colin Stagg and trick him into confessing to Rachel's murder. And there is a problem with this, right? Because when you're talking to someone and you are going to try and talk him into confessing to something, that's very easy to get someone to do. Because you have this man who's not very good with women and she's building up sexual fantasies with him. I'd love you to do this to me. I'd love you to do that to me. This is what I'm invested in. And she very much starts telling him that she has violent fantasies, that she would love for someone to rape her, that she would love for someone to act like they're going to murder her. And this man, who, like a lot of men, is thinking with his third leg, begins to play into her sexual fantasies and manipulation. And that's very easy to get someone to do. And she begins to build a relationship with him. And it is entrapment for sure. And she tells him, you know, I have violent tendencies myself. And I want to do this and I want to do that. And she says she finds violence sexually arousing, and she would find it really, really sexy if he'd ever commit a murder, if he'd ever raped anyone. And so Colin Stagg, yeah. So the operation is seen later as not only entrapment but psychological torture. You get inside of this man's head, he fancies you, he quite likes you, and you start filling his head with stuff, saying, say you're going to do this, say you're going to do that, say you're going to do this. Let's talk about some of your local murders. Let's talk about, this. I'd find it really, really sexy if you killed Rachel Nicole. And he's like, well, I did. You know what I mean? Because he's thinking he's going to get laid. And he's thinking, like, this freak who wants to be with me likes all this dark stuff. So Stagg is desperately lonely and believing he's found someone who cares about him. He starts to share his deepest insecurities, his longing for connection, his fantasizing about wanting a woman to be with for the whole future. And Lizzie is starting to just up things. Now, it's interesting to note, like, thank you, Kim. What I was using then is just an example, but he never confessed. He always said he would talk about things with her. He would talk about things that happened. But he made it very clear that he would not confess to harming Rachel Nicole. He said, I will talk about things with you in a fantasy type situation, but I'm not going to admit to something I haven't done. And he was very clear about that. And even when she pushed him, and because of who he was and kind of how he was, it would have been quite easy to get him to confess to something if she pushed a bit longer. But he said, look, I'm not going to say to you that I've killed someone because I haven't done it. And I believe that this was something that the police absolutely hated him for because they couldn't push him fully. So what we have then in 1994 is they decide to finally charge him with her murder. And they use some of these letters from him and Lizzie to say that he is interested in sexual violence. The entire case rested on the undercover investigation and the psychological profile built by a criminal profiler whose name is Paul Britton. And this Paul Britton tells the trial completely. Thank you, Mel. Thank you so much. Can one of the mods just check what number we're in the competition for me, please? Just so I can keep an eye on it. Thank you, Mel, so much. Love you. This criminal profiler, Paul Britton, he is disgraced after this case, right? He is the one that's saying it's him that's done it. He puts his career basically on the line to say 7. Thank you. You knew what was coming. So he tells the judge, like, Colin Stagg has done this. Like, my criminal profiler means that he has. And the judge, thankfully, throws it out of court. He says, you've got no evidence here. None. You've got no evidence. His judgment on the police and the investigation. Thank you, Claire. Oh, thank you so much. Big up, Claire. Thank you. He says the prosecution case is fatally flawed and fundamentally unfair what you've done to this man. He said, what the police have done here with this undercover operation is the misconduct of the gravest kind. 63, thank you guys. And he rules that the evidence obtained was inadmissible. And Colin Stagg at that point walks free. Now, this isn't quite over for him though. All right. If we could keep working on these just throughout the cases, then we will be able to get hopefully number 50. Thank you, Mel. Oh, big up, Mel. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Gail. When the police celebrated thinking they'd identified Rachel's killer, Colin Stagg's life imploded entirely. Thank you. The media branded him as a child killer who got away with it. And I don't know, thank you, Michelle, I don't know where the child killer bit come into it, but death threats arrived daily. He was spat at in the street. He couldn't work, couldn't maintain a relationship, couldn't leave the house without being abused. Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, Dolly. People had recognised his face from all over the newspapers. People hated him. His mother's health deteriorated from the stress. His few friendships crumbled. He began a prisoner in his own life, guilty by public trial. For 16 years, Colin Stagg lived under a cloud of suspicion while the real killer remained free. And that killer was just getting started. So now we're going to talk about some other cases to do with Robert Napper. Now, while police obsessed purely over Colin Stagg, there was a genuine predator who was terrorising London. Robert Napper had escalated his crimes, but somehow the police were not listening. No matter how many times his own mother phoned up and said he was committing rapes, he was just still out there doing his thing. Napper's childhood reads like most we see in serial killers. Thank you, everyone. He grew up watching his father brutally abuse his mother. When the parents divorced, all 4 children ended up in the foster care system because his mother couldn't cope. At age 7, Napper was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Thank you, Christina. At 12, he was sexually assaulted during a family camping trip, an incident that he says fundamentally changed his personality from outgoing to withdrawn and angry. His teenage years brought more warning signs. He spied on his younger sister, was caught multiple times, peeping Tom, and showed increasingly disturbing behaviour towards women and real hatred. Thank you, Lottie. His mother eventually kicked him out when his conduct became unbearable. Now, I just want to make this very, very clear. I do not agree that any of those things by themselves make a serial killer, and I do believe it's down to self-control. I know a lot of people who've not only been abused in their childhood, have Asperger's syndrome or have autism, and actually are great people, would never hurt a fly. They absolutely would never hurt anyone. So I think although that is his profile, and I also know a lot of you would have grown up in domestic abuse and seen things happen and still not have ever turned out this way. So I don't want you to ever think like, oh, I have a child with Asperger's syndrome or I have autism. She's saying that you're going to be a killer. Like, absolutely not. I think he was very twisted, very evil. I think there was many chances to stop him, and I don't see any kind of, I have no sympathy with this man at all. At last count, they have, thank you, Mel. They have guessed that he had committed 106 individual rapes before he was caught and murdered 3 people. Now, when we get into his next amount of murders, where he killed Samantha and her daughter Jasmine, what he did there was absolutely horrific. Thank you, Pebbles. Thank you, everyone. In his early 20s, Napper was living alone, working minimum wage jobs and nurturing increasing violence fantasies. Now, we talked a little bit a minute ago about the Green Chain Rapist, and he was the Green Chain Rapist. In August of 1989, 3 years before Rachel's murder, Napper committed his first serious crime that we know of. He noticed a house near the Green Chain Walk, a nature trail in southeast London. Kirsty! Thank you, Kirsty, so much. Big up, Kirsty. Thank you so much. Happy St. Patrick's Day for yesterday. Chloe's still drunk. So there was a house near the Green Chain Walk, a nature trail in southeast London, and the back door was open because of the summer. And inside was a young mother who'd just got out of the shower. Her 2 children, thank you, Ali, were downstairs watching TV. So Napper went straight past the children, went upstairs and confronted their mother at knife point. Thank you, Michelle. Oh, thank you, Bev. We're getting there. We're going to get the gift card. Then we'll have a look where we are in the competition. Thank you, guys. So this is what he did. He went in through the back door that was open. The woman was in the shower. He's gone past the 2 children up the stairs, and he rapes her, the mother, in her own bedroom while her children watch TV below her. He says to the mother, if you try to run or make a sound, I'll kill your children. And because of that, she stays quiet, because any mother would. We will protect our children against anything. After he has horrifically and brutally raped her, he says to her, next time, keep your doors locked. And then he leaves. And this is just the beginning. Now, we know that happened in the August. That happened in the August, and we know in the November, his mum phones up the police. And she says, my son said he commit a rape inside of a house near Plumstead Common. And the police do nothing, absolutely nothing. Over the next few years, 4 years, over the 4 years that follow this, he steps up. He becomes known as the Green Chain Rapist. He attacks over 80 confirmed women, and most of those are young mothers with children who watch their mothers get raped and attacked. Most of these happen near wooded walking trails that connect various boroughs in southeast London. And no, he's caught now. His methods become increasingly violent. What started as sexual assault escalated to rape at knife point, then to stabbing his victims in the breast, not to kill them, but because he said he wanted to see blood before he left. The attack followed a pattern Napper targeted vulnerable women, particularly women with young children. Now, thank you, Bev. Thank you, Marion. Now, I've never heard of a case like this where someone weaponizes our love for our children so much, because he later, when it was said by profilers that it was probably because of he had watched his parents go through domestic abuse, he wanted to make other children feel powerless. He said, no, it's not because of that. It's because mothers who have children will do anything to protect their children, so they'll do what I say, right? He absolutely was exploiting our maternal instincts to keep our children safe. So at that point, any woman who has a young child with her is pretty much going to say what I would say: do anything to me, but just leave my child alone. Let them be safe. And any mother is going to feel that way. So he would purposely attack women who were with young, normal toddlers, normally about toddler age, because he wanted to ensure their compliance. And what other way to get a woman to very quickly comply but by threatening her offspring? Truly evil. This is why I don't buy into this whole thing of, oh, it's because of this, oh, it's because of his childhood, boo-hoo-hoo. It's not because he was sick, he was twisted. Anybody who would not only want to put a mother in that place, but that baby who has to watch their mother be beaten, stabbed and raped, like at 2, 3, 4 years of age, when they don't even understand what those things are. Like, that is disgusting. Like, it's horrible. Hello, everyone coming in. Hang on, can I just see? Sorry, I thought I could Taylor shout me, but I don't know what the time was. So, a special police unit was then set up called the Green Chain Inquiry, because this was all of the time that was all over it. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, G. You don't have to do that. Thank you so much. You didn't have to get coins from me. Thank you, G. I appreciate it. So, oh, geez, thank you. They call it the Green Chain Inquiry, and they are clear they've got to catch this man that keeps doing this. And London at this time is in fear because this keeps happening. Like I said, we now think it's about 106. Back then, they knew it was still in its 80s. 80 women, 80 children. Now, not all women had children with them. There was some that, regardless, that were on their own. I'm not going to do a poll yet, Kirsty, because I'm not really bothered about the populars. It breaks up my case too much. We'll just do this for now. So they created the sketch that I showed you, and they released it to the public, and multiple people called in and said, Robert Napper. Police contacted him twice. He agreed to come in and give his blood, but twice he didn't come in. And police didn't find that suspicious. They just moved on. And instead, they just started putting everything into Colin Stagg when it eventually came back to be Rachel Nicole being murdered, and they seemed to forget about the rapes. Now, when you look at the MO, thank you, Maria, of the person that attacked Rachel Nicole, we have the Green Chain Rapist over here, thank you, G, who targets mothers and children. Thank you, Sam. So we have both that target mothers and children, both happen near a wooded area, both show stabbing, extreme violence, and both demonstrated the perpetrator's willingness to attack in the daylight. You have this man in London, and because it's a couple of miles away over here, Wimbledon Common, they're like, no, not. They were just going to dismiss them as being connected. But you don't very often hear of people being raped in front of their children. So the fact that you have this man doing all of these rapes with children around, and then Rachel Nicole gets killed in a brutal way by somebody who is sticking to that MO, they should have listened to that. Instead, they dismissed it very early on. And the reason they dismissed it is because of geographic distance. Rachel was killed in southwest London. The rapes occurred in southeast. The psychological profile suggested the killer must have lived within an hour of Wimbledon Common. And they said to the press, we can't imagine someone travelling across London to kill somebody. That was their only reason. And that decision would become catastrophic. Okay, so we're going to get into the second part of this case. So I'll put Napper up for a minute in case anyone comes in to see what we talk about. We are going to move on to his second murders in a minute. Thank you, everyone, for the roses. So In October of 1992, just months after Rachel Nickell's murder, Robert Napper was arrested for stalking a female police officer. When they searched his home, officers would find an arsenal that would make a whole army, jealous. Like, he had loaded pistols with ammunition, he had a crossbow with arrows, multiple large knives, and various other weapons. The judge who signed the kind of paperwork to research his home after they found everything put, a very dangerous person capable of horrific things. This man will become a danger to society in the coming years, not knowing that he'd already been actually doing a lot in that time. He'd already raped over 18 women and killed Rachel Nickell. Due to this, he was sentenced to 8 weeks in prison. 8 weeks for having enough weapons to kill a small army of people. He was released and immediately returned to his pattern of rapes. Now, what I'm going to go to next is a murder that should never have happened, that he should never have been even out to commit. And I am going to talk about the murder of these two. The Samantha Bissett, the lady there, and Jasmine, the 4-year-old daughter, we are going to talk about. Now, he was just stepping up his murders at this point. What he would do next would become so brutal that it would shock the whole of the UK once more. Ah, thank you, Beth, thank you. It's got different stuff in the boxes. Thank you, that was beautiful. So, now, one of the things I don't really realise about this case is Rachel Nickell is so known in the UK, but not many people know about Samantha and Jasmine Bissett. And that was something that has been said constantly, that why did everyone know so much about Rachel, but these murders went so kind of unheard of? Now, this was every bit as bloody and brutal as what happened to Rachel Nickell. Thank you, 47. Now, Samantha Bissett, who was 28 with long blonde hair, bore more than a passing resemblance to Rachel Nickell. And she was sexually assaulted, raped and butchered along with her daughter just 15 months. Oh, thank you, G. 15 months after what happened on Wimbledon Common with Rachel Nickell. So on the 3rd of November of 1993, Robert Napper forced his way into Samantha's 1-bedroom basement flat in Plumstead. He stabbed her by the front door as soon as he rushed inside. And he then, he sexually assaulted her body, and then he suffocated her 4-year-old daughter, and he kind of left the 4-year-old Samantha like arranged but in the middle of all of her toys. He kind of made this little sick shrine around her body. He then dragged her mother, Samantha, back into the front room, where he stripped her body of all its clothing, disemboweled her corpse, and took away parts of her inner body as a trophy. He then arranged her body on a cushion, stabbed and cut her body even further, and then decided to mutilate her by stabbing her 60 more times and then leaving her gift wrapped almost like a present with these bits of cushion and everything. Now, the scene inside of the Bissett home was so horrific that a police photographer who was brought out to the scene took 2 years off work and had to have just counselling on top of trauma therapy because he was absolutely horrified by what he'd seen that day. I want to then go over to the statement of Conrad, who was the partner of Samantha Bissett, because I want to just kind of get, he's really unheard of a lot. So he was the one to to find their bodies, and he loved little Jasmine like his own. He thought it was an honour to be like a father to her. So he said, Rach, thank you. Oh, that's cool. Thank you, Rach. So Samantha was stabbed to death with her daughter Jasmine. So one more part of this case that I've not said because I'm not going to go into detail about it. But he had also done things sexually to the 4-year-old Jasmine. I am going to put this in here, and then I'm going to leave it just at that. He sexually assaulted her, I'm going to say, and then smothered her to death before going back to play with her mother's body with the mutilation. And I just want to make that very clear. And the reason I'm going to say that here, because obviously I want this baby to have as much dignity as she possibly can, is because this is the first time with Napa where we see that his sexual interests cross over to children. And that has to leave you open to, is that why he did this in front of mothers? Was there a sexual component of a children being present? You have to consider that in the MO of this bastard, because so many of the women he raped, and then Rachel Nicole, had children present. Was there a part of him that was somewhat turned on by the presence of a child being in the vicinity of the rapes? We have to consider that. So Mr. Bissett's partner, Conrad Ellams, the detectives refused to connect the deaths of Rachel Nicole a year before and his partner, even though he asked them several times to. I want to go into the bit where he says about what happened. So he says he had the last conversation with his girlfriend Samantha the night before. They lived separately, they didn't live together. He said, I remember standing outside with Sam asking if she asked if I was coming back that night. I said I was going to go to the doctor's for vaccinations the next morning for our Gambia holiday, so I was going to stay at my father's house, which was closest to the doctor's. It occurred to me later that Napa may have been watching her and might have decided to kill them because he saw her on her own. I've always felt guilty about it. He said, I found their bodies the following day. The first thing I saw was a stain on the carpet, which turned out to be Sam's blood. I couldn't tell at first. I thought maybe Jasmine had knocked paint over or her mum had spilt like red wine. I couldn't connect the two in my head of blood being in the house of the two, the woman and the girl I loved. He said, I went to the kitchen to find something to clean it up with, and I found the floor was covered in Sam's clothes. I thought there'd been a burglary. I walked in the front room and saw Sam. It was a pile of clothes and blankets, but with her arms and legs sticking out. It took me a while to realise what happened. I was in shock. I went to phone the police suddenly, and I thought, oh my God, where's Jasmine? I looked in her bedroom and I could see she was in her bed. A duvet was pulled over her. I stood outside and just chain smoked until the police got there. My world had just fallen apart, and I just couldn't be in that house. I couldn't understand it all. I don't know how he's supposed to react to something like that. And then he goes on to say that he believes that his loved ones would still be alive if police had listened and arrested Napa in the times that they failed to arrest Napa. Which, before I go back into the Bissett case, I just want to talk to you about this. So 8 missed opportunities to arrest Napa before this second murder. You have Napa's mother called the police back in 1989 to say that her son was coming home saying he was committing rapes. She says he raped a woman in his home 8 weeks ago, which would be the first time when he did it to the woman with her children downstairs. A neighbour then tells police Napa matches the photo fit of the Green Chain Rapist. He doesn't give the blood sample. Another member of the public who lives near him phones up and says, Bob Napa, he's the Green Chain Rapist. Again, he doesn't bring in a blood sample. Detectives examine Napa in connection to the rapes and rule him out for being too tall. Police search his home. So the time that they searched his home and found the weapons, they also found an A to Z book, a map, where he had crossed next to every single rape he'd commit. He basically left them a fucking mapped out plan of all of his rapes. He also had diaries describing ways to restrain people and a gym card belonging to one of the rape victims inside of the pages of his map. He still is not pursued. So we have 89 rapes happening around a certain area. We have a man who has crossed off every single location where a woman has been raped. They do nothing. 2 boys find a tin buried in a common on South East London. Inside is a gun carrying Napa's fingerprints. Police decide not to arrest him and not to question him. A member of the public spots Napa preying on a young blonde woman in her home. He's outside the house. He's looking through the window. He's about to enter. Police question him and let him go, noting only on their file, well, he could be a rapist. And then a hunting knife is found, buried 100 yards away from when Rachel Nicole died. 100 yards. a stone throw away from where Rachel Nickel is murdered, and it is conclusively linked by DNA and fingerprints to Robert Napper, but they don't question him about it. And they just leave him out. So 15 months later, not only is he committing more ferocious rapes, but he's also killing the Bissett family. So Sam's boyfriend, Conrad, returned home to find the door locked, which was unusual. Using his key, he enters to find a large dark stain on the carpet. Thinking Sam has spilled something, he goes to the kitchen for supplies. The kitchen has been destroyed, turned over, clothes are scattered everywhere. Panic rising, Conrad runs to the living room and finds Sam's body covered by a blanket and only her hands and feet are visible. I know, it's horrible. The kitchen's been destroyed, like I said. Upstairs, 4-year-old Jasmine is laying motionless in her cot bed. Both have been murdered in ways so horrific that, like I said, the photographer of the scene had to take 2 years off due to trauma. The autopsy reveals that Sam has suffered 60 stab wounds to her neck and chest, and after killing her, Napper has raped her corpse, mutilated her body, carved symbols into her skin, and disemboweled her, taking away part of her abdomen as a trophy. Then he went upstairs to 4-year-old Jasmine before smothering her to death. It's truly horrific because, like the family have said over and over, this didn't need to happen. This did not need to happen. He's already sick. He should have been caught. And, several people had handed him over to the police several times over and said it's Bob Napper, it's Robert Napper, it's Robert Napper. He looks just like the crime, the photo fit. He was just left to do what he wanted to do. He had the A to Z map of all the rapes. He had murder weapons, crossbows, knives. There wasn't anything more that he could have said, I'm a rapist. This time Napper left evidence at the crime scene. A perfect shoe print in blood, a fingerprint on an exterior railing where he'd climbed to come into the flat. When the fingerprints run through the database, they match Robert Napper. Police put him under 24-hour surveillance, but Napper quickly realises he's being followed and begins to take evasive action. They decide to arrest him before he could escape. Now, during the arrest, police find a red metal toolbox, and in there contains a rape kit, knives, weapons, and again they see this map of London where every location the Green Chain Rapist had struck has been circled on the map. But do you know what else was circled? Wimbledon Common. But still it would take 16 years before they ever even consider him to be involved with Rachel Nickel's murder. Now, on the day that Rachel Nickel was murdered, what they found in little Alex's hair was red paint chips. Now, they would perfectly match the paint of Robert Napper's toolbox. The same toolbox that contained the map marking Rachel's murder location. The same toolbox that would contain the murder weapons. The same toolbox that belonging to the man whose DNA was found on Rachel's body. But yet it would take years. It wouldn't be till 2008, 16 years after Rachel's murder, that Robert Napper would finally be charged with her killing. And up until that point, Colin Stagg had had his life ruined for 16 years, people believing that he had done this. Butter Place, I've not seen you for ages. How are you? He pled guilty to manslaughter on grounds of diminished responsibility, claiming his schizophrenia had made him not responsible for what he'd done. Hey, how are you? Are you okay? The same defence had worked for the Bissett murders. Napper was sent to Broadmoor Hospital for the criminally insane, where he remains today. Colin Stagg was finally officially cleared of all suspicion. Alex Nickel, now an adult, finally had answers about his mother's death. We're going to talk a bit more about him in a minute. But 16 years had been lost. 80 women had been attacked, confirmed, up to 106. 2 more people had been murdered, all because police refused to admit they were wrong. Now, Rachel Nickel had become so big in the British policing, you know, exposed so many failures, and it demanded that we reform the system somehow. Colin Stagg would receive substantial compensation for his ordeal. He wrote 2 books about his experience trying to reclaim the narrative. And let's not forget, Colin Stagg was also a flasher. He was also somebody who was not great towards women. But he's obviously he didn't do this though. So, you know, he said he just wants to get on with his life. The undercover officer Lizzie James also sued for compensation, claiming operation had ruined her career and mental health. She received £125,000. Now, she received £125,000, this police officer that took part in the scheme. Hey, Amina. She received 5 times more than baby Alex. 5 times more than the compensation for Alex for what he'd been put through. This sparked outrage. A police officer who voluntarily participated in unethical work received more compensation than the traumatised 2-year-old who had been left clinging onto his mother's bloody body. Now, perhaps the most inspiring part of this whole case is the resilience of Alex Nickel. He grew into a thoughtful, positive young man. This is him with his dad here. This is Alex here. We're going to talk a little about one of Alex's interviews. He's just wrote a book as well, actually. This is Alex's dad here, Andre, and this is Alex here. I know Rachel would be so proud of him. He's become a yoga instructor. He eventually moved to Barcelona. He is absolutely just such a great inspiration. We're going to go through one of his interviews in a second. He looks like a brilliant cross between his mum and his dad, and he you know, this, we'll do that now. Actually, we'll go across that now. Hey. Guys, can we try and push this of the gift goal a little bit just so we can stay in the competition while we're working, if that's okay? Not all the same people that always do. I'm not talking to you because I know you guys always do. Okay, I want to go into this. This is thank you, Candy. This is an interview that he did in 2017 with The Guardian. And I'm going to go to this one because I just trust The Guardian. I think they would have been most respectful and not make up his words or anything. So it says, the murder of Rachel Nickel was one of the most high-profile cases of the most few decades. Her name conjures up an instant picture. Now, people have somewhat forgot about Alex and Andre Hanscom because they left the UK just after everything happened, because obviously Andre wanted to protect Alex from being swallowed up by the press in this country. Now, 25 years later, thank you, Naomi, side by side in a hotel bar in sunny Barcelona, they come to speak to The Guardian. So Alex, 27 at this point in 2017, has written an account of his mother's murder, its impact on him in the aftermath, as he remembers it through the eyes of a child. Though he was just 3 weeks short of his 3rd birthday when it happened, he was able to provide police with a strikingly accurate account of the attack and the attacker, and it remains crystal clear in his mind. He said that she took him and the dog Molly, which was a rescue dog. She called them her little pack, and she had been with Andre. She was 23 at the time. They met when she was at a swimming pool when she was 19, lifeguarding. Just want to get in. He said, I remember waking up in the morning it happened, waving goodbye to my father, watching him fire up his bike for work. The journey across town to the common was kind of disappeared, but I remember walking along the path with Mum in the woodland. Suddenly a man appeared from nowhere. Alex later described him to police. He had a loping walk, his strange blank face, his black bag, white shirt. He threw Alex to the ground, and by the time he had recovered himself, the man was down at the stream washing his hands before lurching away. Rachel, who had been stabbed more than 40 times, lay utterly still. He said it's not like when it happens in the movie. It was so quick. Everything was silent. There was a strange polarity. Even though it was hectic and violent, there was so much blood. At the same time, there was this big feeling of peace and tranquility. To me, no, don't worry if you can't afford to gift, guys. Honestly, I'm not talking to everyone. There's just 1,000 people in the room who just want to push this competition. If you can't afford to, obviously don't. To me, my mother just looked like she was lying there ready to wake up, like the games we used to play. Alex asked her repeatedly to get up. This is what I remember the most, he said. The particular moment I knew she was gone, the feeling of losing someone you love, how everything can change in a matter of seconds. It seems extraordinary that Alex never asked for Rachel again or wanted an explanation for where or what had happened. It was like he knew that he left her behind that day at the common. The family, at least, in his little world, he already formed an understanding of death. The family had recently rescued a bird with a broken wing, which fried for a while, then died. They had buried it on Wimbledon Common just before, and Rachel had explained that the bird didn't need his body anymore because he was going to God, the part that was really him. And Alex had been transfixed by what his mum said and understood this was probably the same. Alex woke up the next morning and asked immediately for Daddy, although he'd always asked for his mummy before. He said, and then Andre says, we had a hey Danny, are you okay? We had a normal family dynamic. I went to work, Rachel was at home with Alex, the two were a unit, a circle, and I was on the outside controlling the perimeter. I like that explanation of a family. I didn't take in all the details of Alex's day because it wasn't my responsibility, but normality for a 3-year-old means getting their toast right. What would Rachel have wanted? That's how I ask myself every day, and that's how I've raised Alex, the way Rachel would have wanted. I just think it's absolutely sad, but I don't understand how they didn't see that Rob Napper was part of this. For years and years and years, people kept phoning and saying that Robert Napper had done these things. I love this picture. And that's the truth about this story, is that these things did not need to happen. And this is like the tree where it happened. This is just where the police tape is there, is where Rachel Nickel's body was found with Alex. I love these pictures. Look at them as a baby. It's so, look at them. Hey Jilly, how are you? This is Samantha and Jasmine Bissett. So innocent. This is Rachel Nickel's. This is where the common is, Wimbledon Common. Thank you, Del. Thank you everyone for the lit gifts. If I've not stopped all the way through the live to say thank you, I do mean thank you. Thank you, Anne. Oh, thank you, Annie. So that's very nice of you. Oh, thank you, Anne. That's very lovely of you to send that. Thank you. And this is Conrad with it. He said he loved Jasmine like she was her own. She had started to call him Dad. I don't know how he could ever do this to children. It just. This is Napper here. These are just some of the headlines at the time. Is it just me, or has he, even as a child, got an unusually large head? Just a question. Thank you, Don Don. Thank you very much. He has. Yeah, I thought he had. Not that that means anything. I always just wonder about these. Yes, alien. What alien head? It's just I think the failures in this case. That's what I was thinking, Wing. That's what I was asking. The failures in this case are unforgivable. He's still alive, yeah. He's still at Broadmoor.